Welcome to this webinar, 5 Approaches to Circular Electronics. It is part of the awareness initiative Circular Electronics Day. If you'd like to engage on social media, use the hashtag Circular Electronics Day. This webinar will be recorded in case you have colleagues that couldn't join today. So we're going to share the link afterwards. If you have questions on the presentations, write them down and save them, because you will have the opportunity afterwards in breakout sessions to have more in-depth discussions with the presenters. Circular Electronics Day is an initiative supported by more than 20 organizations with the objective to raise awareness of more circular management of electronics. The initiative is driven and project led by TCO Development, and I am Cassandra Julin from TCO Development, also the project lead for Circular Electronics Day. So welcome to the main stage. Here is where the 5 main presentations will take place. Afterwards, there's going to be Q&A sessions in the breakout session rooms. So we're going to give you more information about that later. But if you can hear me and see me right now, you're in the right place. So stay tuned. Today's speakers are Kristina Liljestrand from Chalmers Industriteknik, Sebastian Holmström from Inrego, Juice de Kluver from Closing the Loop, Claire Hobby from TCO Development, and Johan Brännström from 3-Step IT. If you'd like more information on Circular Electronics Day, visit the webpage where you can read about the initiative. You'll find an educational quiz about circular electronics, and you also have a blog series where you can read up on more best practice cases. So, without further ado, and apologies for this delay, let me introduce today's first speaker, Johan Brännström. He's a PhD student in circular economy, and is also a support at 3-Step IT. So, welcome.
Hello, everyone. Finally, that's great. Now I'm just gonna share my screen here. So this is great. I hope you can see my presentation now. It's an honor to start this event off and having so many nice people hearing me, what I want to share with you. And what better way to start off a webinar about circular IT equipment than by talking about sustainability and circular economy. You've heard my name, you know what I do. I just would like to add that I also assess environmental performance and write about circular indicators, and that I also represent my consultancy work with Chasing Circular, which I do together with 3-Step IT, which is an IT management company with a life cycle perspective, which is why I like to cooperate with them, because they actually apply theories about circular economy in practice. But let's go on. We don't have much time, and I want to share with you 3 insights about circular economy and IT management. 3 insights that I've gotten as a researcher. So, what's the first one? I think it's very important that in order to succeed with circular economy, we need to create a quantifiable goal. And how do we do that? I think this theoretical framework, which is called donut economy, is a great start. It gives an understanding for what the roof is, or the ceiling for resource extraction. If we exceed this ceiling, we will create too much impact, leading to environmental instability. So that should be like the framework in that direction. But we also have a floor. We need some resources to survive and to live happily here. So that would be the minimum required resources to extract. And if we can find a balance between these two barriers, then we can hopefully live sustainably. So what is this quantifiable goal? Well, for us in Sweden, where we use a lot of resources, and by resources I mean material, energy, water, etc., a good rule of thumb would be to reduce the resource use per person. And why do I say per person? Well, if we think in terms of material use per product, if we increase consumption rates, this assessment won't be very relevant. So we need to lift the view and include more things. And have that in mind when we go to the next slide, or the next insight, which is to succeed with circular economy, we need to have a life cycle perspective on material flows. So here I'm going to present 4 different sets of strategies or solutions. The first one being use less products. And here there are different business models, but one important is apply sufficiency, meaning think like, I don't need 5 computers. I maybe need 1. And another one is combining functions. A mobile phone is a great example of that, where you actually have the function of a watch, a phone, of course, and many other things. The second set of solutions is to extend or increase the lifetime of products. This is very basic. Quality products will last longer, but you can also repair and refurbish to make them last even longer when they finally reach the end of life. The third thing is maybe what you think about when you think circular economy: circulating materials at the end of life and perhaps in production. So recycling, downcycling, all these technical solutions that are used to take back materials into production again. And lastly, we have production efficiency. I'm just gonna talk briefly about production on demand as an example. Instead of producing things first and pushing them out on the customer, gadgets or units when you know that someone has ordered it or has bought it. Okay, but the main point with this slide is really, if we combine all these solutions and think about them from the start, then we can reduce the resource use a lot. For those who like numbers, well, listen these next 10 seconds. If we could, let's say, expand the lifetime of products to the double, we could halve the number of products we use and circulate, let's say, 50% of all the materials. Then just adding that together, or multiplying really, would mean that we only use about 10% of when I say use, we would only need to extract 10% of the material that we extract today. So that's a mathematical rule of thumb that can be used. So life cycle perspective. And next insight is about new mindsets when doing business. So how should we think if we buy things, for example? Well, then the first thing is to ask yourself, do I really need this product? And if the answer is yes, do I have to buy a new one, or can I buy a reused one? Will last a long time. And similar mindset can be used when you sell things. So instead of selling as many products as possible, you try to sell a function or a service, meaning that you hopefully will use less products. In the use phase of products, you can also think differently by taking care of your things and making them last longer. And when you're done with them, think twice before you throw it in the trash, or really think 5 times. But then maybe you think now, okay, but this is not possible. when I buy something that it will break in 2 years, there's nothing I can do about it. No, but then we have smart design. We should, companies who design things, they should really think about these things. And design is very important, because there you can decide the fate of a product, both what's going to happen during its use phase, if it can be refurbished, recycled easily, etc., etc. So I want to try to conclude, and I've had a lot of thoughts about this, how I should do it. But finally, I came up with something I think I'm good with, which is I've given to you a lot of theoretical solutions to a problem here. The problem being we use too much resources, and the solution is theoretical business models that can be used to reduce the resource use. But how do we do that in practice? Well, I think we need to collaborate. People who have these theories, like myself and other researchers, must communicate this to people out there in the real world. And you who are interested in making a difference for the environment, you should talk to people like us. And we should try and test these theories together. And then we will understand what the problems are, what the challenges and obstacles are. And first, when we know that, we can overcome them. So some last words. If you thought this was interesting, something wasn't clear, and you want to know more, I think you should join the session afterwards. And if that's not enough for you, you could visit my homepage, Chasing Circular, where I write and hopefully add videos on the subject in the future. But you're also very welcome to add me on LinkedIn or write me an email and talk about these things. So I think I'm good. I have 30 seconds left, but we'll take that from the technical challenge.
Thank you, Johan, and thank you for your presentation. Like you mentioned,
Thanks.
contact details are available on the Circular Electronics Day webpage. If you go on there, you find these 5 cases along with other best practice cases at the bottom. And in the best practice cases, for example, the one where Johan has written, his contact details is included in that webpage. So go to the webpage that I posted in the chat and you can find contact details there. I think it was really interesting what you said, the 10% rule of thumb. That's something that I'm going to take with me, the 50% less bought goods and 50% increased recycling. So definitely going to ask you some questions about that in the breakout sessions. We have our next speaker lined up, Claire Hobby. She's Director for Purchaser Engagement globally at TCO Development. Welcome to the stage, Claire.
Thanks, Cassandra. Hi, everybody. Really happy to be with you today. Let me just bring up.
So Claire will talk about driving circularity through sustainability certifications. I can also forgot to mention the title of your presentation, but there it is.
No problem. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Cassandra. So, hi, everybody. I want to take a quick few minutes here to talk directly to those of you who are involved in IT procurement, or if you use IT in your organization, which we all do, or if you affect policy. What are some really concrete things that you can do? And a certification like TCO Certified is one really great way to start. And I'd highly encourage you to take a closer look at some of the circularity aspects that we include in TCO Certified, which is what we want to talk about today. How to set good criteria, how to do it up front, because what we want to do is really influence product design so that what happens at the end of the life cycle actually really happens up front when we're deciding what to buy and how to use what we buy. So a quick primer on TCO Certified for those of you who may be new to us. We are a free-to-use global sustainability certification specifically for IT products. We cover a very broad set of criteria for social and environmental responsibility, and we include a number of circularity criteria. So I really want to encourage you to go to our website, TCO.com. There's a really great product finder function where you can see everything we certify. You can track those products and get updates on specific brands or specific products that you might be interested in. What I want to touch upon today is really based on some recent work we did and that we published last year in our latest Impacts and Insights report called Circular IT Management in Practice. And the big conclusion we had from studying life cycles of IT products and circular impacts, we really discovered that using what you have for a longer period of time is the best thing you can do. And we'll go into that a little bit more and what that and the implications of doing just that, as well as some other activities you can focus on. We get the question quite a lot around circular IT. Well, it's just about recycling, isn't it? And the answer could be yes, and it could be no, because there's a number of different things you can do. Some are more high impact than others. But what I would say is don't wait until you have products that you're wondering what to do with. You've used them, you're trying to decide how to handle them at the end of life. Because what happens at the end starts at the beginning. And that's what we need to be rethinking about. How do we get those requests up front so that industry hears your voice and that it allows you to use those products longer? And you are the voice. Procurement is the loudest voice there is when it comes to really impacting product design. I often talk about a story that a conversation I was in about a year ago between a very large purchaser and a well-known brand. And the question to the brand was, well, when are you going to start offering more circular solutions? And the answer to the purchaser was, well, that depends when you're going to start asking for it. So we need to be asking really good questions, tough questions, sticky questions, and not be afraid of that. So TCO Certified is one way you can do that, is really getting good criteria that impact product design upfront and allow for a more circular approach. So our criteria include product durability, replaceable components, battery longevity, very important, and replaceability, as well as a very important aspect for those of you who manage IT in your organizations, secure data removal, which allows you more easily to give products a second life, to hand them on with the confidence that your data is not being leaked. So really quickly, 3 questions I wanted to touch upon from our study that we did last year on a group of notebook computers. We wanted to see what's the actual impact of using products longer. And also, what about buying a more energy efficient product? That's a question that a lot of us come up with. Is it just better to buy something that's more energy efficient? And how does this prolonged use we're talking about affect your financials? So this picture, I think, is fascinating because we all focus on making our products as energy efficient when we use them. But if we look at greenhouse gas emissions, the vast bulk of these emissions actually happen during the manufacturing phase. If you look at that pie chart on the left, it's almost 80%. So if we translate that into how we are impacting design and how we're using it, we want to try and make as big an impact on the manufacturing phase as we possibly can, which means we don't want to be manufacturing too many products either. So longer product use is really critical here so that we're not repeating that high level of emissions more than we need to. So what about buying a more energy efficient product instead of one that we think is not super energy efficient today? And this is based on a study of the Eco Institute in Germany. They took a number of notebooks and decided, what if we were to extend the usable life of these notebooks by 3 more years? And what if we were to upgrade them? Let's say if we're going to use them longer, they might need a new memory, they might need a new battery, for example. And what they found was that even when we take the time and the resources to upgrade our existing products, you're still in a better position than if you were to buy a more energy efficient product. Again, look at that, the amount of emissions that are happening in the manufacturing phase. And if we look on the right, the examples that came out of this study were that if you were to buy a 10% more energy efficient notebook or a 20% more energy efficient notebook, you have to use those products for an awfully long time to try and compensate for those emissions that are happening in the manufacturing phase. So again, it points to longer product use. And of course, we know for a lot of these solutions to actually get buy-in, both with your vendors and your organizations and your users, having some good financial arguments are really key. There's got to be a business benefit, a business imperative to really getting some of these solutions rolled out. And again, for obvious reasons, extending the life of your products can save you money. You're not buying new products quite as often. You're using them longer. You might be buying used products. Which is also, I know several of our speakers will be talking about today, the benefits of doing that. Consider some of these factors when you're buying up front. What's our use life going to be? Are we able to buy some second hand? But also think about the embedded value that's in these products. You have the opportunity to sell them on to give them that second life as well. And we came up with a 4-step plan. Just to give you a simple start, again, top of the ladder, use things longer.
Okay, so it seems like Claire has got some connectivity problems, but she's running up to the end of her presentation time. So we have the breakout sessions afterwards, and I really want to encourage you to find out more what Claire had to say and to find out the final words, then join her session. I know she's very passionate about sustainable procurement and helping purchasers. So in the report that she was talking about, there is 33 hands-on tips on more circular procurement and management of IT products. So if you're interested in that, then make sure you log on to her session to be able to ask more questions. So thank you again, Claire, and apologies for the technical disruption there over from the United States. We want to welcome then our next speaker, Sebastian Holmström. He's a circular strategy lead at Inrego, and he's going to talk about rethinking IT management. So welcome.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and Claire left a great cliffhanger for all of us to want to listen even more.
Right.
And I think she also left a really great introduction for me, and where I will keep on talking about how we should reinvent IT and creating a circular economy for electronics. And we really need to do this from reinventing and redesigning our whole economy. We need to redesign our business models. We need to change the way we both consume, produce, and use things. And as you said, I'm from Inrego, and we work with IT refurbishment, which I will get into more in detail. So circular electronics, I will go in a little bit here, but Claire mentioned a few things here, such as the embedded value. Electronics has a high potential for circularity because of its high embedded value. And what does that mean? Well, the used goods have a high value, and that is why it makes sense to reuse that. Because when we talk about circular economy, we need to have the sustainability, but also the economy. And this is one of the key reasons why I think that circularity within IT has one of the highest potentials of all the different streams of products. And that is the reason why we at Inrego have been able to do this for 25 years. There's also a lot of environmental savings through reusing, as Claire was also talking about. We did a study as well together with IVL, the Swedish Research Institute, to look into this. And what is the benefit, what is the benefit of refurbishing rather than scrapping your old product? And we can see that the carbon benefit of reusing is 280 kilos for a laptop and 55 kilos for a smartphone. And this report is up there. It's free to download and use the data. We have seen different actors, ourselves, our competitors, and our partners using this data. So feel free to use that. And another important topic is that we have the climate and that issue, but we also have the resource issue, both of the e-waste produced at the end of life, but we also have the resources that's created in the production and the invisible waste that goes into producing, for example, a computer, where if we have a 3 kilos of computer, which our own standard is, then there's around 1,200 kilos of waste produced upstreams. So we really need to keep the materials and the embedded value in use for as long as possible. And I borrowed this one from you guys at TCO because I think this really shows. As we looked into, the manufacturing stage has a really high climate impact. Almost 80% of the whole impact is from there. 6.8 from transportation, and the use phase for around 13%. So what we really need to look into is how we can prolong the lifetime, and at the end of the second life or the first life, give the product a second life with a new owner. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how reuse works in practice. And I think reuse of electronics is great. There's a lot of companies doing this. Where I'm based in Sweden, there's a lot of actors globally. And it's one of the more mature markets globally regarding circular goods. And how does it work in practice? Well, for example, we at Enrego, we buy used electronics because we see a high value in those and we pay for that value. And then we take them to our facilities, in this case in Stockholm, Sweden, where we first data wipe everything. That data protection is an important topic, that it should be as safe being circular as being linear. And that's really important. And after that, we try to maximize the value of the used electronics. And our whole business model is actually maximizing the use of used electronics. It's as simple as that. And the reason we've been able to do this for 25 years is because there is a lot of embedded value. There's really much, both, it's also climate positive, but it's really beneficial economically as well. And what we have seen in the 25 years that we have been doing this, in all the time, it has been a higher demand for used electronics than the actual supply. And this is an interesting situation because in the normal cases with business, you have the opposite. You're trying to create the demand, but the demand is there for used electronics. It's difficult to get hand of it. And we really need to change the way we both consume, produce, and use things. And I think, as Claire mentioned really well, that we cannot simply think about reuse at the end of stage when we are done using a product. When we actually procure things, we need to think what will happen with this product at the end of life. So we need to have a systematic view on the question and to really rethink the way we do things today. And we need to create a whole new economy, and that is difficult, but it is possible. And we need to show that it is already happening and that it is possible. And I think it's great with all the interest for Circular Electronics Day, because I believe that to do this, we really need to do it together. And last year at Enrego, we were able to handle 350,000 different products in which we gave a second life. And I think that's incredible, but this is just a start. 350,000 is a lot. And we're seeing a rapid growth right now in the whole industry. But we really need to scale this up and scale it up quickly and do this together in order to really maximizing the use of the products that we already put on the market. And I believe we're seeing a big shift in this. So we really need to reinvent IT, and we need to do this together. And through creating new business models, through capturing value. I think value is the core of all of this. And in the whole shift, we need to think about the value in which we're losing by not being circular. So we need to rethink everything, basically. And I think something that Johan talked to that was really good also is that collaboration is a key in the circular economy, and we will see completely new partnerships going from linear to circular. Because in the linear economy, you have your suppliers, which you buy things from. You have you have your consumers in which you sell things to. But in the circular economy, your consumers will be your users, and you might be getting your products back. And when you get your products back, you will have a completely other dialogue with your supplier. And when you get your products back, you might be designing them in a completely new way. So I believe design and partnerships are a key decision and key focus in the circular economy. Thank you very much for your time. And if you want to talk about these questions, feel free to join me in the discussion afterwards. Everything from how reuse works in practice towards questions such as circular business model, reinventing IT. Thank you very much.
I've been fortunate enough to done a study visit at Inrego, seeing the work that they do. And one of the things that I brought with me, a comment from one of your colleagues, is also that IT products soon becomes e-waste if you start treating them as such. So also one of the prerequisites for being able to have a second-hand market is that we are looking after our IT products and treat them as the valuable resources that they are, and don't just chuck them and so that they are destroyed.
Definitely, Cassandra.
That's definitely something to think about. Thank you. Sebastian will be available in a breakout session later on to ask more questions. We have our next speaker lined up, Joost de Kluwer, founder of Closing the Loop, also CEO, who's going to talk about pragmatic circularity for tech turns industry giant and green innovator into allies. A very interesting case. So welcome to the stage, Joost.
Thanks so much. And I'm even understandable, I hope. Great.
Yes.
A good sign. Let me just show a few slides. Thanks so much for the introduction. So Joost de Kluwer for Closing the Loop. And thanks so much for the speakers that already set the stage on circularity. And I think already described to a large extent that circularity is quite difficult. We need to, as Sebastian just mentioned, rethink everything. So that's not really easy to do, right? So a lot of people, when they think about circularity, they think the world will be better, we will not have any waste, we will not have any pollution. So that's great for the planet. But yeah, is it also good for business? Is it easy for me as a procurer or as a tech buyer to change my supplier or change the products that I'm buying or ask my supplier to change his production process? That will take a lot of time, effort, energy. And most of the time, people are actually just wanting to buy tech. They're not here, usually, when they buy a laptop or a phone, to change the planet. So there's a challenge there. Yes, circularity means almost everything that we're currently doing, the way that we consume, the way that we interact, the way that we pay, etc. Everything will need to change, but how to get started on everything. So there's one way. Being an activist, usually that's not the way that we see most IT departments are willing to take. It's great if you can ask your suppliers to become more sustainable, but I think the example shared by TCO already today was, it doesn't really happen quite a lot, right? I mean, procurers, companies are not asking their suppliers to deliver green products because they still think that being green or being sustainable or circular means that's only for the fanatics. It's for people that want to change the planet and I just want to buy tech, right? That's usually, unfortunately, what we hear quite a lot from procurers. So my company thought, well, let's do things a little bit differently in that case. If we want to serve almost everyone that buys tech and want them to get on board for circularity, we need to make sustainable or circular procurement really easy. And yeah, that does mean that we make it also simpler than chasing everything. So the service that we developed for that is called waste compensation. It closes the loop for the procurement or usage of tech in a very simple way. When you buy a new device, you compensate that device by collecting and recycling an equivalent amount of waste. So you compensate your waste footprint for the sustainability people that are in the call today, or you make your new device waste neutral for the more tech-focused people on the calls, or for the circular thinkers, it's a circular business model that funds electronic waste collection in emerging markets. Because that is what my company does. My company has been collecting electronic waste, devices that are completely end of life, not usable. I'll stress that one more time. Waste, that's what we collect, the devices that would otherwise be, especially in those countries, dumped or burned. We collect electronic waste, allowing for those devices to actually be recycled, turned into materials again. And as a result, we've now had 8 years of experience of collecting over 3 million end-of-life devices, working with local communities, creating jobs and income in countries like Ghana and Nigeria. So much, applause for us. It's all good, but what does that mean for you? Well, it means that when you use one of our 2 services, I'll be focusing on one of those today. When you use one of our services, you can make your current process waste-free in a simple, pragmatic way. And the service I'll be talking about here is when you dispose of your electronics, I'm quite sure that you will not throw them in the bin. If you do, please talk to Sebastian. But if you don't, then you'll hopefully work with a company like Enrego, reuse those devices, give them a second life, which is great. Those devices will have many years still of usage. You'll make many people happy. It's a great business model, so perfect. Reuse is a good thing. Our service makes reuse even better. It makes it circular or waste-free. And it works like this. You sell your used tech. Those devices are sold on the second-hand market. They're used for many years still, but they are also lost. You do not know where they will go, which is not a problem, because when they are being reused, it's already a green, sustainable proposition. But when you collect a similar amount of electronic waste as the amount of devices that you dispose, it means that your disposal program becomes waste-free. I'll explain that more simply. You have one laptop, a used device, you sell it off, it's great, it gets used again, and perhaps even more times after that. We then collect an equivalent amount of waste, and our collection makes sure that you can state that your disposal or reuse process is closed loop or circular. And of course, we collect that waste in emerging markets, which has a lot of positive impact, you can imagine. So I'll just use this slide and I'll read it out loud. I'll send these slides afterwards so you don't have to bear with me when I explain everything what's mentioned here. But it says that sustainability, or specifically circularity for tech, isn't only about saving the planet. It's not only for activists, although I like activists, of course, but it's also for companies and people like you that firstly would like to do something easy, fun, and positive, and valuable. And these are the values that we bring. We make the devices that every employee uses every day waste-free, allowing for huge employee engagement opportunities, because those devices that they're staring at the whole time, especially now in the COVID situation, all of a sudden become symbols of circularity, pragmatic circularity. Secondly, waste compensation is a great way to get started on the topic of circularity, which we all talk about all of the time, and we all know it's very difficult, and as a result, no one is doing it. Offering waste compensation, implementing it, adding it to your current process gets you started in a simple, pragmatic way. And thirdly, there probably also will be some people that would like to share stories. Our approach is mostly valued because of the fact that it brings great content. Stories about waste being transformed into gold. Of course, topics around jobs and income created in emerging markets, etc. So, our view is, let's make circularity simple. Yes, there are also activists and really engaged companies, so it's great to serve them, but they're a little bit in the minority. So serving the majority is what we're all about, which means that, and this is actually from the UN. I don't really very often talk about the UN saying, it's great stuff that they came up with on communication perspectives, but this is great, right? They created a lazy person's guide to saving the world, and level 1 is actually where just about everyone is at. Level 1 is, sure, I want to do good, but it needs to be really easy, right? I need to do this from my sofa. So serving that group, and I'm not saying that all of you here on the call are in that group, but almost everyone in your company is, almost everyone in the societies here in Europe even is. They want to be green, but they want to be green in an easy way. So helping them is great. And that means that we are collaborating, because the best way to make sustainability and circularity work is integrating our service. We're just a very small company, integrating our service into the processes of your current partners, making the process, again, that you have right now, circular or waste-free. As a result, one of the leading companies in the IT world, Ingram Micro, teamed up with us to make their proposition on take back and reuse closed loop or circular. And that's really what we think is circularity is all about. Yes, it's about making companies and the industry circular, but we can really do that today by teaming up as circular service providers, as producers, and of course as procurers, allowing these firms like Ingram and many others in Rego, of course, as well, to offer a service to you today. So a quote, sure, I'll share this afterwards, which explains a little bit why Ingram did that. Because they create value for the customers, and because it then helps them to make the planet a little bit more cleaner and circular. Thank you.
Thank you, Joost. One of the things that I'm always fascinated with the work that you're doing in closing the loop is, for so long it has been a certainty for a lot of companies and organizations to climate compensate for their flying or for a lot of things that they do. But people haven't even thought about electronics so far, that there is a way to actually compensate for the electronic waste you create by buying new or used equipment. So that's a really nice space I think you're filling, where you're doing something good also in those countries you're talking about Ghana. You're actually changing the situation for people in those countries by removing those toxins from the environment that would otherwise being able to leak out in the water, in the air with pollutants and so on. So it's I have a lot of respect for the work that you're doing.
Thanks so much.
So if you're interested in more about the work of closing the loop, join Joost's breakout session. But we have one more speaker to go. Kristina Liljestrand from Chalmers Industriteknik will talk about the KEEP project, a traceability system for electronics. Welcome to the stage, Kristina.
So I would just share my presentation, which is not coming up, of course. Let's now give me 1 second, sorry.
No problem.
It popped up and then it disappeared. Okay, I will share my screen instead. Let's give it one more try. Nope. So I share the screen and you get the... So do you see the presentation now?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Perfect. Then we go. So very nice to be here and present. I'm going to talk about the project where I have the great honor to be the project manager. We call it short KEEP, and the longer title is Keep Electronic Products in the Circular System. And we are looking at how you can fasten the movement to a circular society with help of a traceability solution. So before I go in and talk about the project, I just want to talk a bit about what a traceability solution is. So a traceability solution starts with that all products get the unique product identity. So there is not two products that have the same identity. And you can access this identity through different ways for different tags. So here, for example, is a QR code, but it can also be an RFID tag, for example. And when you have a unique product identity for all product, it enables all the actors and organization throughout the product's life cycle to both access information and put up information to some kind of database. So that is what we are looking at, how we can enable for all the actors that will handle a product throughout the life cycle to get more information so they can make more sustainable choices about this product. And there are a lot of advantages. If you want to dig into this, please contact me or look at our webpage, which I will show later on. But we can see that throughout the whole value chain, the actors, they need to have more information in order to act more sustainable. And this is what we want to give them with help of with the traceability system. And if we zoom up from looking at the individual actors to more the circular economy, what do we think that the traceability system can give us? We have looked into this and we have found 3 areas which we think can be improved with help of traceability. The first one is sustainable production, and that implies that when we put new products on the market, we want them to be produced in a sustainable way, the best for both the environment and for social aspects. So we believe that if you have more information about how the products are produced, you will ask for more sustainable products as well. And that traceability system can help with. The second area, a lot of the previous speakers talked about that, it's the reuse. We need to prolong the lifetime of the products that we put on the market. And here we can also see that a lot of information can help with that. So it can be, for example, information to consumers, how they can find a second user when they don't want the product, where they can repair them. For repair shops, it can, for example, be information about how to repair products and where you can find spare parts, etc. And the third area is then once the product cannot be used anymore, or there is no one more who wants to use them, we need to make the material recycling process more efficient. So that is both taking out the components that are still working and there is a place for somewhere else. And then the rest of the material, we want to have clean and high valued material fractions so we can use the material again. And here it's a lot about getting information to the material recyclers about which materials that the product contains. And we are not the only one discussing this. In KEEP, we talk about the traceability system, but there's also another term that has been used in EU the last years, and that is product passport. And this is a term that pops up here and there. There are nowhere any long descriptions. So we cannot say for sure that it's exactly the same thing as we are talking about when we talk about the traceability system. But what we have been reading about it here and there in shorter description, it looks very, very similar. So loved children have many names. So that can also be good to know that the traceability system and the product passport is in many cases the same thing. And here I also think that it's important that the industry and other organizations that we help to develop this, so it actually becomes a system that creates value for everyone involved. So a little bit about our project. We are financed by the Swedish innovation agency Vinnova in a program where the funding is divided into 3 steps. So we did a pre-study in 2018. Now we are at the end of the second step where it's about proof of concept. And then our ambition is that we want to go to a third step and actually test this in full scale. So a little bit about what we have been doing in step 2. We have looked a lot at the information needs throughout the value chain. What information do different actors need to enable the circular system? And then we put all this information into a prototype. I will show you a screenshot of it soon, where we actually show how the information can, how different actors, what kind of information they can see and how it can be presented. And then we are now also evaluating this prototype that we had through different proof of concepts together with actors in the value chain. So we don't have time to look at the prototype in detail, but please go in and have a look. It's open and accessible to everyone at keepelectronics.com. And here's just one screenshot of it. So in the prototype, it's a lot of focus on the information that different actors need. And for us, it's very important that different actors need different kinds of information. So when you go into the prototype, in the down left corner, you can change which role you want to have if you want to, for example, be a consumer or a manufacturer. And then the information that can be seen changes. And what is very interesting here is that we have 3 producers on board, Lenovo, Dustin, and Clas Olsson, and they have all chosen one product each and actually put it into the prototype and tried to find all the information that actors along the value chain wants. And here we can see that it's not easy. It's not to press a button for a producer and then they can upload all the information. A lot of the information is there, but it's stored at different places, etc. So here, what we've also done in the prototype is that the manufacturers, they have graded how difficult it was to access the information, and because I think that is important for the future, that it's of course great with a lot of information, but it also costs money to retrieve all the information. So we need to balance there how easy it is to access information and how important it is. But when you go into the prototype, you can see that as the long wish list. That's kind of all the information that different actors have specified that they want in different workshops and interviews, etc. A little bit about who we are. For the moment, we are a project group of 14 fantastic project partners. And when we set the group together, we wanted to have companies and organizations representing these 3 areas that we want to work with. So it's sustainable production, reuse, and materials recycling. And then we also wanted 2 organizations representing the users, since they are a part of all these 3 processes as well. And then it's, of course, very important to understand how to work with information sharing and standardization. So there we have GS1 on board. And then it's us on Chalmers Industriteknik doing the project management. But now we are going into step 3. And we want to increase the project group as it is right now. So we are currently in the process of forming our next project and the application for it. So now we are looking for organizations that want to be part of step 3. So if you think that this sounds interesting and we are thinking about a product passport, or wow, maybe we can use a traceability system, please contact me and we can have a discussion if this is something that can be interesting for you. And it's not only Swedish companies that can be part of that. It's okay for everyone to join. So please contact me if you want to know more about KEEP and step 3. Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, Kristina. Having followed KEEP for a while now, since we are one of the partners in the project, one of the things that stood out to me for the success of this is really finding the right collaboration partners. And I think that's really well done, that you looked at the entire life cycle of an IT product to find the right partners to cover that. So if you have more questions to Kristina as well, it's all about the breakout session. Realized I never shared my screen with you in the introduction section, so you never actually had a chance to see this nice color of Circular Electronics Day. So just a reminder, if you'd like to engage on social media, use the hashtag Circular Electronics Day. And if you follow that hashtag, you can also see a lot of these best practice cases being shared from the organizations behind the initiative. And saying that, I also like to take the opportunity to show the organizations. This is just a snapshot, and there are still organizations joining. As I mentioned, the initiative is open and available for those who want to drive for the same goal. So get in contact with me if you're interested in joining this initiative. The Circular Electronics Day itself, it's on Sunday, but we're going to keep the awareness campaign going for another couple of weeks at least. It's never a bad day to speak about circular electronics, I think. So what's going to happen now? Please join the breakout sessions. You will find a session for each speaker. So you can join the one where you have the most questions. It's possible to move between them, but the sessions will be set up so the moderators will not wait for you. They will stay in the sessions as long as there is a good discussion going and they have questions. And then once the discussions are finished, or after 30 minutes or 4:30, whichever comes first, the sessions will close down. So make sure you join the session of the speaker that you are most eager to talk to. To ask questions, you in the sessions, the moderators will show in the different sessions as well, but you click join with audio and video in the right-hand corner of the screen, and then the entire group will see and hear you, and you can ask your question. And once you have your question answered, you click leave, and that means you will not leave the session, you will just leave the stage, so they can no longer see and hear you. Or if you are a little bit shy, you can also type your question in the chat box for that session and the moderator will read it. So there are different options. Huge thank you for joining the first part of this session, and I hope you will have rewarding and interesting discussions now with our speakers. So if you stay in here, you will be in the wrong place. I'm going to mute my sound, so click on sessions and choose where to continue. Thank you.